The sound of the car pulling into the gravel driveway made Olivia Nash look up from the worn kitchen table, her heart sinking as she recognized the sleek black sedan. Another real estate agent, no doubt, coming to pressure her into signing papers that would turn her childhood home into just another demolished memory in the path of urban development. She wiped her flour-dusted hands on her apron and steeled herself for the conversation, already rehearsing the polite but firm refusal she had given a dozen times before. But when she opened the door, the man standing on her porch was not holding a clipboard or wearing the practiced smile of someone trying to sell her something. Instead, he stood with his hands in the pockets of an expensive wool coat, his dark hair slightly windswept, his expression unreadable. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that suggested he was used to commanding rooms full of people. His eyes, a striking shade of gray-blue, studied her with an intensity that made her acutely aware of the flour on her cheek and the frayed edges of her favorite cardigan. Olivia Nash. His voice was deep, measured, the kind of voice that belonged to someone who chose his words carefully. "That's me," she said, keeping one hand on the door frame. "If you are here about the house, I am not interested in selling." "I know," he said simply. "That is why I am here." "May I come in?" She hesitated, confusion replacing her defensive posture. "I do not understand. My name is Owen Prescott. I own the development company that has been trying to purchase your property." He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. The embossed lettering confirmed his identity. Owen Prescott, CEO, Prescott Development Group. "I would like to talk to you, but not about selling. About not selling." Olivia stared at the card, then back at him, trying to process this unexpected turn. "You want to talk to me about not selling the house you have been trying to buy for 6 months?" "Yes. That does not make any sense." "I know," he said again, and this time there was something almost apologetic in his tone. "But I would appreciate 5 minutes of your time, please." Against her better judgment, Olivia stepped aside and let him in. The house was small, the furniture dated but well-maintained, the walls covered with family photographs that spanned generations. She watched as Owen took it all in, his gaze moving slowly across the living room, pausing on the antique grandfather clock in the corner, the handmade quilts draped over the back of the sofa, the piano that had belonged to her grandmother. "Would you like some coffee?" she asked, falling back on the hospitality her mother had drilled into her since childhood. "That would be nice, thank you." She led him to the kitchen, where the warmth from the oven had fogged the windows and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Owen sat at the table without being asked, looking oddly at home despite his clearly expensive clothes and the incongruity of his presence in her modest kitchen. Olivia poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot she had made earlier, set them on the table, and sat across from him. "So," she said, wrapping her hands around her mug, "you are here to tell me not to sell my house." "Not exactly." Owen took a sip of his coffee, then set the cup down carefully. "I am here to ask you not to sell it to anyone, including me." Olivia blinked. "I was not planning to sell it to anyone. I have made that very clear to every person who has contacted me." "I know. But I also know that the city is putting pressure on you, that the property taxes have been raised significantly in the past year, that you have been struggling to keep up with repairs and maintenance on a house this old." He held up a hand when she started to protest. "I am not trying to intimidate you or prove that I have been investigating you. These are just facts that are publicly available. What I am here to tell you is that if you decide to sell because the financial burden becomes too much, there are other options. Options that do not involve demolishing this house." "Why do you care?" The question came out sharper than she intended, but she was genuinely confused. You are a developer. You have been sending representatives here for months, making offers, trying to convince me that selling is the smart thing to do. Why would you suddenly want me to keep the house?" Owen was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, almost reflective. "Do you know what this neighborhood used to be like? Before the development boom, I grew up here," Olivia said. "So yes, I know exactly what it used to be like. Then you know that every house on this street had a story. That there were families who had lived here for generations, who knew each other, who looked out for each other." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "I bought into this neighborhood 2 years ago with the intention of building luxury condos and high-end retail spaces. I saw an investment opportunity, a chance to capitalize on the urban renewal trend. What I did not see, or what I chose not to see, were the people and the history I was erasing." Olivia felt something shift in her chest, a cautious curiosity replacing her skepticism. "What changed?" "I drove past this house 3 weeks ago. It was late afternoon and you were in the front yard, planting bulbs in the flower bed. There was a little girl with you, maybe 5 or 6 years old, helping you dig. She was laughing, and you were showing her how to place the bulbs in the soil. And I realized that I was watching something I had not seen in a long time, something real and genuine and beautiful." He paused, his jaw tightening slightly. "I went home that night and could not stop thinking about it, about how many moments like that I had already destroyed, about how many more I was planning to destroy. The little girl was my niece," Olivia said softly. "Emma, she loves helping me in the garden." "I am glad she has that," Owen said. "I did not have anything like that growing up. My parents were too busy building their business empire to care about things like planting bulbs or making memories. I spent most of my childhood in boarding schools and summer camps, being groomed to take over the family company. I was successful, I made money, I built things. But I never built anything that mattered." Olivia studied him, seeing past the expensive clothes and polished exterior to something more vulnerable underneath. "So what are you saying? That you are having a crisis of conscience?" "Maybe," he admitted. "Or maybe I am just finally paying attention to the consequences of my choices. Either way, I do not want your house to be another casualty. I am asking you, please do not sell it. Not to me, not to anyone. Keep it in your family. Keep the memories alive." "That is a lovely sentiment," Olivia said carefully. "But sentiment does not pay property taxes or fix a leaking roof or replace a 40-year-old furnace. I appreciate what you are saying, Mr. Prescott, but unless you have a practical solution, this is just a nice conversation." Owen reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded document. "What if I told you I have a practical solution? What if I told you that I am prepared to set up a trust fund specifically for the maintenance and preservation of this house? Enough to cover property taxes, repairs, utilities, everything in perpetuity. The house would remain yours, legally and completely, but you would never have to worry about the financial burden of keeping it." Olivia stared at the document he had placed on the table between them. "Why would you do that? What do you get out of it?" "Peace of mind," Owen said simply. "And maybe the chance to start making amends for the damage I have already done. I cannot bring back the houses I have already demolished or the families I have already displaced, but I can save this one. I can make sure that Emma has a place to plant bulbs with her aunt for as long as she wants." "You do not even know us," Olivia whispered, her throat tight. "No," he agreed, "but I would like to if you will let me." Olivia picked up the document with trembling hands, scanning the legal language that confirmed everything he had said. It was real, legitimate, almost too good to be true. She looked up at Owen, searching his face for any sign of deception or ulterior motive, but all she saw was earnestness and something that looked almost like hope. "I need time to think about this," she said finally, "and I need to have a lawyer look at this before I agree to anything." "Of course," Owen said, standing up. "Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere." He pulled another card from his pocket and wrote something on the back before handing it to her. "That is my personal number. Call me when you have made a decision, or if you have questions. Or if you just want to talk." Olivia walked him to the door, her mind spinning with possibilities and questions. As he stepped out onto the porch, he turned back to her. "For what it is worth," he said, "I think what you are doing, holding on to this house and these memories, is braver than anything I have ever done. Do not let anyone make you feel like sentiment is not practical. Sometimes it is the most practical thing in the world." She watched him walk to his car, feeling like the ground beneath her feet had shifted in some fundamental way. As he drove away, she looked down at the card in her hand, at the numbers he had written in a bold, confident script, and wondered if she had just met someone extraordinary or if she was being played by a master manipulator. 2 days later, after her lawyer had reviewed the documents and declared them legitimate and even generous, Olivia found herself staring at her phone, debating whether to call the number Owen had given her. She had spent 48 hours thinking about their conversation, about the sincerity in his eyes and the vulnerability in his voice when he talked about his childhood. She had also spent 48 hours reminding herself that he was a wealthy developer who had made his fortune displacing people just like her, and that one moment of conscience did not erase years of ruthless business practices. In the end, curiosity won. She dialed the number and held her breath as it rang once, twice, 3 times. "Olivia." Owen's voice came through the line, warm and slightly surprised. "I was hoping you would call." "My lawyer says the trust fund is legitimate," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "He also says it is the most unusual thing he has ever seen in 30 years of practice." "I imagine it is," Owen said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Does that mean you are considering it?" "I am considering it," she admitted, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "First, I want to know more about you. If I am going to accept this level of generosity from you, I need to understand who you are and why you are really doing this." "Fair enough," Owen said. "What else?" "Second, I want transparency. If this trust fund comes with strings attached, if there is some way you benefit from this arrangement that I do not know about, I want you to tell me now." "There are no strings," Owen said firmly. "The only thing I get out of this is the satisfaction of knowing I did something right for once." "But I understand your skepticism." "What else?" Olivia took a deep breath. "Third, I want you to have dinner with me, here at the house. Tomorrow night, I will cook and you will answer my questions and we will figure out if this is something I can actually accept." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment Olivia wondered if she had overstepped. Then Owen said, "I would be honored." "What time?" 7 o'clock, and Mr. Prescott, do not be late." "I would not dream of it." The next evening, Olivia found herself in a state of nervous energy she had not experienced in years. She had spent the afternoon cleaning the house until it shone, even though it was already spotless, and had prepared a meal that was more elaborate than anything she usually made. Roasted chicken with herbs from her garden, garlic mashed potatoes, fresh green beans, and a salad with homemade vinaigrette. She had even baked an apple pie, using her grandmother's recipe and the antique pie dish that had been in the family for 3 generations. At exactly 7 o'clock, Owen knocked on the door. When she opened it, she found him holding a bottle of wine and a bouquet of wildflowers that looked like they had been picked from the side of the road rather than purchased from an expensive florist. "I hope I did not misunderstand the tone of this dinner," he said, holding out the flowers. "But I figured homegrown was more appropriate than hothouse roses." Olivia took the flowers, surprised by how much the gesture touched her. "These are perfect," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "And you are right on time. You told me not to be late," he said with a slight smile. "I am a fast learner." She led him to the kitchen, where the table was set for two and the smell of roasted chicken filled the air. Owen looked around, taking in the details, the care she had put into the meal and the setting. "This is incredible," he said. "When you said dinner, I was expecting something casual. This is a feast." "I take cooking seriously," Olivia said, pulling the chicken from the oven. "It is one of the ways I stay connected to my family. My mother taught me to cook in this kitchen, and her mother taught her. Every recipe has a story." "I would love to hear them," Owen said, and she could tell he meant it. They sat down to eat, and for the first few minutes they focused on the food, making small talk about flavors and cooking techniques. But as they relaxed into the meal, the conversation deepened. "So," Olivia said, setting down her fork, "tell me about yourself. The real story, not the sanitized version you tell at business meetings." Owen took a sip of wine, considering his answer. "I grew up in Connecticut, in a house that was more like a museum than a home. My father built a pharmaceutical company from the ground up, and my mother came from old money. They had very specific expectations for me. Ivy League education, business degree, executive position in the family company. I followed the script perfectly until I was 28. "What happened when you were 28? "My father died," Owen said quietly. "Heart attack." "He was at the office, working late, like he always did. I inherited the company and realized I had no idea what I actually wanted. I had spent my entire life doing what was expected of me, and suddenly I was in charge and I had no passion for any of it." "So you sold the pharmaceutical company?" "Eventually, yes. I spent 2 years trying to make it work, trying to care about profit margins and market shares and all the things my father had cared about. But my heart was not in it. So I sold it, invested the money, and started Prescott Development Group. I thought building things, creating something physical and tangible, would be more satisfying than pushing pills." "Was it?" Olivia asked. Owen was quiet for a moment. "At first, yes. I liked the challenge of transforming neighborhoods, of seeing empty lots become thriving communities. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what I was actually building. I started seeing properties instead of homes, investments instead of memories. I became exactly what I was trying not to be, just in a different industry." "So what changed?" Olivia pressed. "Why now? Why my house?" "Because I saw you with your niece, and I remembered something I had forgotten," Owen said, meeting her eyes. "I remembered what it felt like to want something real. My grandmother had a house like this, in upstate New York. Old, drafty, filled with mismatched furniture and 50 years of accumulated memories. I spent 2 weeks there every summer when I was a kid, and those were the happiest times of my childhood. She taught me to fish and to play cards and to make pancakes from scratch. When she died, my parents sold the house immediately. They said it was impractical to keep it, that it was just taking up space and resources. I was 16 and I did not have any say in the matter." "I am sorry," Olivia said softly. "I had not thought about that house in years," Owen continued. "But when I saw you in your garden, teaching Emma how to plant bulbs, I suddenly remembered every detail. The squeaky board on the front porch, the way the screen door never closed properly, the smell of my grandmother's cooking. And I realized that I had become my parents, deciding that sentiment was impractical, that memories were not worth preserving. I do not want to be that person anymore." Olivia reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "I think wanting to change is half the battle. Actually doing it is the hard part." Owen turned his hand over, his fingers curling around hers. The contact was warm, solid, unexpectedly comforting. "That is why I am here. That is why I am asking you not to sell the house. Because if I can save this one place, these memories, maybe I can start to make up for all the ones I have already destroyed." "You cannot save the past," Olivia said gently, "but you can change the future." "Is that what you are doing?" Owen asked. "Changing the future by holding on to the past?" "Maybe," Olivia said. "Or maybe I am just stubborn. My mother died 3 years ago, and this house is all I have left of her, of my grandmother, of the family I grew up in. My father passed when I was 12. My grandparents are gone. My siblings moved across the country for work. Emma and her parents visit when they can, but most of the time, it is just me and this house and a lifetime of memories. Selling it would feel like giving up, like admitting that none of it mattered." "It matters," Owen said firmly. "Every moment, every memory, every lesson learned in this kitchen matters. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." They sat there for a long moment, hands clasped across the table, connected by shared understanding and something else, something neither of them was quite ready to name. Finally, Olivia pulled back, suddenly self-conscious. "I made pie," she said, standing up quickly. "Apple pie. Would you like some?" "I would love some," Owen said, his voice warm with amusement at her sudden nervousness. They moved to the living room with their pie and coffee, settling onto the old sofa. Owen looked around at the photographs on the walls, and Olivia found herself telling him stories about each one. Her parents on their wedding day, young and hopeful. Her grandmother standing in front of this very house in 1952 when it was brand new. Her siblings as children, playing in the backyard that was now overgrown but still full of potential. Emma as a baby, cradled in Olivia's arms on the front porch. "You have a beautiful family," Owen said. "Even if they are scattered now, you can see the love in every picture." "What about you?" Olivia asked. "Do you have family, siblings, a significant other?" "No significant other," Owen said. "I was engaged once, about 5 years ago, Miranda. She was beautiful, accomplished, came from the right background. On paper, we were perfect for each other. What happened? I realized we did not actually like each other," Owen said with a rueful smile. "We were good at playing the part of the power couple, good at attending charity galas and business dinners. But when it was just the two of us, we had nothing to talk about. She wanted the lifestyle and the social status. I wanted someone to plant bulbs with. We ended it amicably, and she married a hedge fund manager 6 months later. Last I heard, they are very happy." "And you have not met anyone since?" "I have dated," Owen said, "but nothing serious. I think I was waiting to figure out who I actually was before I tried to build a life with someone else." He looked at her, his gray-blue eyes steady and honest. "What about you? Surely someone as remarkable as you has not been alone all this time." Olivia felt heat rise in her cheeks. "There was someone, a few years ago, David. He was a teacher at the elementary school where I work. We dated for almost 2 years. What happened? He wanted me to sell the house," Olivia said simply. "He said it was too much work, too much of a burden, that we could build a future together if I was willing to let go of the past. He gave me an ultimatum, and I chose the house." She looked around the living room at the familiar surroundings that had been her anchor through so much loss. "Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. But then I walk through these rooms and remember everything my family built here, and I know I could not have done anything else." "He was an idiot," Owen said bluntly. "Anyone who asks you to give up something that matters this much to you does not deserve you. That is kind of you to say. It is the truth." Owen set down his coffee cup and turned to face her fully. "Olivia, I need you to understand something. This trust fund, this offer, it is not charity. It is not some wealthy man trying to assuage his guilt by throwing money at a problem. It is me, trying to do something meaningful with resources I have been wasting on meaningless projects. This house, your family's legacy, your connection to the past, it all matters, and I want to help preserve it. Not because I think you owe me anything, not because I expect anything in return, but because it is the right thing to do. Olivia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had been carrying the weight of this house and these memories alone for so long that having someone offer to share the burden felt almost overwhelming. "I do not know what to say." "Say you will let me help," Owen said softly. "Say you will trust me, even though I have not given you much reason to. Say you will accept the trust fund and keep this house in your family where it belongs." "On one condition," Olivia said, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling through her. "Name it." "That this is not the last time we have dinner together. That you come back and we keep talking and you tell me more about the man you are trying to become." She met his eyes, feeling brave and terrified all at once. "Because I think I would like to know that person." Owen's face broke into a genuine smile, the kind that transformed his entire expression from serious and controlled to open and warm. "I would like that very much. In fact, I insist on it. But next time I cook, it is only fair." "You cook." "I have hidden talents," Owen said. "My grandmother taught me during those summers at her house. I may be rusty, but I remember the basics." "Then it is a deal," Olivia said, extending her hand formally. "You set up the trust fund, I keep the house, and we have dinner again next week, your place or mine." Owen took her hand, but instead of shaking it, he held it gently, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "Mine, I think. It is time you saw how the other half lives. Fair warning, though, my house has no history, no memories, no soul. It is just expensive furniture and good views." "Then I will bring the soul," Olivia said with a smile. They sat there on the old sofa, hands still clasped, talking until well past midnight. They covered everything from childhood memories to favorite books to their deepest fears and greatest hopes. Owen told her about his work, about the projects he was proud of, and the ones that kept him up at night with regret. Olivia told him about teaching second grade, about the kids she had loved over the years and the small victories that made the job worthwhile. When Owen finally left, well after 1 in the morning, Olivia stood on the porch and watched his car disappear down the street. She felt like something fundamental had shifted in her world, like she had been living in black and white and had suddenly discovered color. The house, which had felt like both a blessing and a burden for so long, now felt like the beginning of something new rather than the last remnant of something lost. The next week passed in a blur of anticipation and preparation. Owen's lawyers finalized the trust fund paperwork, and Olivia signed the documents that would secure her family home for generations to come. But more than the financial security, she found herself thinking constantly about Owen. About his honesty, his vulnerability, the way he looked at her like she was something precious and rare. When Saturday evening arrived, Olivia stood in front of her closet feeling nervous in a way she had not felt in years. She settled on a simple blue dress that brought out the green in her hazel eyes and a cardigan her mother had knitted. Understated but elegant, comfortable but special. Owen had sent a car for her, which felt extravagant and slightly ridiculous, but when she protested, he had simply said that he wanted her to relax and enjoy the evening without worrying about driving. Owen's house was in the hills overlooking the city, all glass and steel and modern architecture. It was beautiful in an austere way, but as Olivia walked through the front door, she understood exactly what he had meant about it lacking soul. Everything was perfect, coordinated, professionally decorated. There were no family photos on the walls, no mismatched furniture, no signs that anyone actually lived there. "I know," Owen said, reading her expression as he took her coat. "It looks like a hotel, not a home. I bought it 5 years ago because my real estate agent said it was a good investment. I have never felt comfortable here." "It is beautiful," Olivia said diplomatically, "just very different from my place." "That is a kind way of saying it is cold and impersonal," Owen said with a self-deprecating smile. "Come on, the kitchen is this way." "That is the only room in the house that feels even remotely lived in." He was right. The kitchen was warm and inviting, with copper pots hanging from hooks and the smell of something delicious filling the air. Owen had clearly been cooking for hours, and the results were impressive. Pasta with homemade sauce, fresh bread, a salad with ingredients that looked like they had come from a farmer's market. "You are not kidding about having hidden talents," Olivia said, genuinely impressed. "This looks amazing." "My grandmother would be proud," Owen said. "She always said that a man who could not feed himself and the people he cared about was not much of a man. So she made sure I learned. I am rusty, like I said, but it is coming back to me." They sat down at the kitchen table, which was much smaller and more intimate than the formal dining room Olivia had glimpsed on her way through the house. As they ate, they picked up their conversation where they had left off the week before, but with an added layer of comfort and familiarity. They laughed more easily, touched more casually, let silences stretch without feeling the need to fill them. "Can I ask you something personal?" Olivia said as they were finishing the main course. "Of course. What made you become a developer?" "I mean, I know you said you sold your father's company and wanted to build something tangible, but why development specifically? Why not architecture or construction or something that focused on creation rather than transformation?" Owen was quiet for a moment, twirling his wine glass thoughtfully. "Honestly, I think I was trying to remake the world in a way I could control. I had spent my whole life feeling like I was living in someone else's vision, following someone else's rules. Development gave me the power to decide what stayed and what went, what got built and what got torn down. It was intoxicating at first, having that level of control. And now I realize that control is an illusion," Owen said. "I can tear down buildings and put up new ones, but I cannot control what people feel about those changes. I cannot bring back what I destroyed or undo the harm I caused. All I can do is try to make better choices going forward." "Like saving my house," Olivia said softly. "Like saving your house," Owen agreed. "And maybe, if you will let me, helping you restore it to its full glory. I notice the porch needs work and some of the window frames are rotting. The trust fund will cover repairs, but I would love to be involved in the process. I would like to learn how to preserve something rather than just replacing it with something new." Olivia felt something warm bloom in her chest. "I would like that. Actually, I have been making a list of projects for years, things that need to be done but I could not afford. Having someone to help with them, someone who actually cares about preserving the character of the house, that would be wonderful." "Then we will make it happen," Owen said. "Whatever you need, whatever the house needs, we will figure it out together." The word "together" hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Olivia felt her heart rate quicken, felt the shift in the atmosphere from friendly to something more charged. Owen seemed to feel it too because he reached across the table and took her hand, his touch gentle but deliberate. "Olivia," he said, his voice low and serious, "I need to be honest with you about something." Her stomach tightened with anxiety. "Okay. I did not come to your house 3 weeks ago just because I had a sudden crisis of conscience. I mean, I did have a crisis of conscience, that part was true. But the reason I came to you specifically, The reason I wanted to help you keep your house was not entirely altruistic." He paused, seeming to gather his courage. "The truth is, I saw you in that garden with your niece, and I felt something I have never felt before. It was not just recognition of something I had lost. It was attraction, fascination, a desire to know you. I have spent the past 3 weeks trying to convince myself that this was just about making amends, but that is not the whole truth. I am drawn to you, Olivia, and I needed you to know that before we go any further down this path." Olivia felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She looked at Owen, at the vulnerability and honesty in his expression, and felt her own feelings crystallize into something clear and undeniable. "I am glad you told me," she said finally, "because I have been trying to convince myself that what I am feeling is just gratitude or relief or admiration for what you are doing for me and my house. But it is more than that. I like you, Owen. I like talking to you, spending time with you. I like the way you make me feel seen and valued. And that terrifies me, because I have spent 3 years building walls to protect myself, and you walked right through them in 2 dinners. I am terrified too," Owen admitted. "I have spent most of my adult life keeping people at arm's length, never letting anyone get close enough to see the parts of me I am not proud of. But with you, I want to be honest. I want to be better. I want to be the kind of man who deserves someone like you." "You are that man," Olivia said firmly. "You are already that man, Owen. You just needed to remember." He stood up, still holding her hand, and pulled her gently to her feet. They stood there in the kitchen, close enough that Olivia could see the flecks of darker blue in his eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. When he cupped her face in his hands, his touch was reverent, careful, like she was something infinitely precious. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," she breathed. His lips met hers softly at first, a question and an answer all at once. But as she responded, threading her fingers through his hair and pulling him closer, the kiss deepened, becoming more urgent, more passionate. It was a kiss that tasted like possibility and hope, and the kind of connection that could not be manufactured or forced. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Owen rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since the moment I saw you answer the door covered in flour," he said with a breathless laugh. "I have wanted you to do that since you showed up with wildflowers instead of roses," Olivia replied, her own laughter mixing with his. They finished dinner in a haze of new romance, unable to stop touching each other, fingers intertwining across the table, shoulders brushing as they cleared plates together. Owen suggested they have dessert on the terrace, which overlooked the city lights, and they settled onto a cushioned bench with tiramisu and coffee. "I could get used to this," Olivia said, looking out at the view, "though I still think my kitchen is cozier." "Your kitchen is infinitely better than my terrace," Owen said. "Your kitchen has heart. This is just expensive landscaping and good lighting." "Then why do you stay here?" Owen was quiet for a moment. "Habit, I suppose. Inertia. The same reason I stayed in development even when it stopped making me happy. It is easier to keep doing what you are doing than to make a change." "What if you did make a change?" Olivia asked. "What would that look like? Honestly, I have been thinking about that a lot over the past few weeks. What if I shifted my focus from development to preservation? What if instead of tearing down old neighborhoods to build new ones, I worked to restore and protect historic properties? There is probably less money in it, but I have enough money. What I need is purpose." "I think that sounds wonderful," Olivia said. "There are so many beautiful old buildings that get demolished just because it is easier than restoration. Having someone with your resources and expertise working to save them could make a real difference." "Would you help me?" Owen asked suddenly. not with the business side, but with understanding what makes a place worth saving. You have something I lack, an emotional intelligence about spaces and memories and what makes a house a home. I could use that perspective. I am an elementary school teacher, Olivia said with a laugh. I do not know anything about historic preservation or real estate development. You know the most important thing, Owen said seriously. You know what matters. You know why a house like yours is worth fighting for, worth preserving, worth all the time and money and effort it takes to maintain it. That knowledge, that passion, that is what I need. The rest we can figure out together. Olivia looked at him, at the earnestness in his expression and the hope in his eyes, and felt her last reservations crumble. This man, who had shown up on her doorstep 3 weeks ago and turned her world upside down, was offering her not just financial security but partnership, purpose, a chance to turn her love of history and preservation into something bigger than just her own house. "Okay," she said, "I will help you. On 2 conditions. Name them. First, I keep teaching. I love my students and I am not ready to give that up." "Absolutely," Owen said. "I would never ask you to. Second, you let me help you make this place feel more like a home. If we are going to be spending time together, I want to do it in spaces that feel lived in and loved." Owen's smile was radiant. "Deal. Though I have to warn you, I have no idea where to start." "That is what I am here for," Olivia said, leaning in to kiss him again. The next few months unfolded like a dream Olivia had not known she was allowed to have. Owen was true to his word about everything. The trust fund for her house was established and fully funded. He hired contractors to work on the necessary repairs, but only after consulting with Olivia on every decision, making sure that any changes preserved the character and history of the house, rather than modernizing it beyond recognition. He also threw himself into the idea of shifting his business focus to preservation and restoration. He hired consultants who specialized in historic properties, started researching buildings in the area that were in danger of demolition, and began the process of transforming Prescott Development Group into something that built up rather than tore down. It was not an easy transition, and there were moments of frustration and doubt, but Owen approached it with the same intensity and determination he had once applied to maximizing profits. Through it all, he and Olivia grew closer. They fell into a rhythm of dinners at her house and his, long walks through the city looking at historic buildings, weekends spent working on restoration projects. Owen learned how to repair original hardwood floors and restore vintage light fixtures. Olivia learned how to read architectural plans and evaluate the structural integrity of old buildings. They learned each other's rhythms and quirks, the way Owen liked his coffee too strong, and Olivia could not function before 9 in the morning, the way they both came alive when talking about buildings with stories to tell. Emma and her parents visited for Thanksgiving, and Olivia was nervous about introducing Owen. She need not have worried. Owen was wonderful with Emma, listening patiently to her elaborate stories about school and helping her make pie crust in the kitchen. Her brother, Marcus, and his wife, Rachel, were more skeptical at first, protective of Olivia after what had happened with David. But over the course of the weekend, they saw the way Owen looked at her, the way he treated her with respect and affection and genuine partnership, and their skepticism melted into approval. "He is good for you," Rachel said on Sunday morning as they were cleaning up after breakfast. "I have not seen you this happy in years, maybe ever." "I did not know I could feel like this," Olivia admitted. "I thought the house was enough, that preserving the past was all I needed, but Owen makes me want to build a future too." "Then build it," Rachel said simply. "You deserve this. You deserve someone who sees how remarkable you are." By Christmas, Olivia and Owen were inseparable. They celebrated the holiday at her house, decorating the tree with ornaments that had been in her family for generations. Owen brought his own contribution, a handmade wooden star that his grandmother had made for his first Christmas. It was the only thing of hers he still had, and giving it to Olivia to put on her tree felt like a declaration of something profound. "This is where it belongs," he said as they stood back to admire the fully decorated tree. "With family, with people who understand that some things are worth holding on to." "Our family," Olivia said softly, testing out the words. Owen pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Our family," he agreed, "if you will have me." She turned in his arms, looking up at him with tears in her eyes. "Are you asking what I think you are asking?" "Not yet," Owen said with a gentle smile. "I am not that presumptuous, but I am saying that I want us to be permanent. I want to wake up in your kitchen and go to sleep in your arms and spend the rest of my life helping you preserve everything that matters. When I am ready to ask properly, I will do it right. But I needed you to know where my heart is." "My heart is in the same place," Olivia whispered. "It has been for months." They spent Christmas Day cooking together, hosting a dinner for Marcus, Rachel, and Emma, who had driven up for the holiday. Owen proved to be surprisingly good with a turkey, and the meal was a chaotic, joyful celebration that filled the old house with laughter and warmth. As Olivia looked around the table at the people she loved, old and new, she felt a completeness she had not experienced since her mother passed away. The new year brought new challenges and opportunities. Owen officially restructured his company, renaming it Prescott Preservation, and focusing exclusively on historic restoration and adaptive reuse projects. It was a massive undertaking, and not everyone in the industry took him seriously at first. But as word spread about what he was trying to accomplish, other preservationists and historians began to reach out, offering partnerships and advice. Olivia became an unofficial consultant for the company, helping evaluate which properties had historical and emotional significance worth preserving. She had an instinct for it, an ability to look past decay and damage to see the bones of something beautiful underneath. Owen relied on her judgment completely, and their professional partnership strengthened their personal relationship. In March, they took on their first major project together, a 1920s apartment building that was slated for demolition to make way for a parking garage. The building was in bad shape, with water damage and outdated systems, but it had beautiful Art Deco details and had once been the social center of its neighborhood. Olivia fell in love with it immediately, and together she and Owen worked with architects and contractors to create a plan for restoration that would preserve the historic details while updating the infrastructure to modern standards. It was hard work, sometimes frustrating, often expensive, but when the project was finally complete 6 months later, the result was stunning. The building reopened as affordable housing with commercial space on the ground floor, its original character intact, but its functionality brought into the 21st century. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, several former residents who had lived there decades ago came to see the restoration, and Olivia watched them walk through with tears streaming down their faces, overcome with joy at seeing their old home brought back to life. "This is what it is all about," Owen said that night as they lay in bed in Olivia's house, exhausted but elated. "This feeling, knowing that we saved something that mattered to people, this is what I should have been doing all along." "You are doing it now," Olivia said, curling into his side. "That is what counts." "I could not do it without you," Owen said seriously. "You are the heart of this, Olivia. You are the reason any of it works." "We are the reason it works," Olivia corrected. "Together." In early October, Almost exactly 1 year after their first meeting, Owen asked Olivia to go for a walk. It was a beautiful fall day, the kind of perfect weather that made everything feel possible. They walked through the neighborhood where Olivia's house stood, looking at the trees turning gold and red, the families raking leaves in their yards. "I want to show you something," Owen said, guiding her down a side street she did not usually take. At the end of the street stood an empty lot, overgrown with weeds but cleared of debris. Olivia looked at it, confused, until Owen handed her a rolled-up set of architectural plans. "What is this?" she asked, unrolling them. "Our future," Owen said simply, "if you want it." The plans showed a house, designed in a craftsman style that would complement the existing neighborhood. It was not large or ostentatious, but it was beautiful, with a wide front porch, a kitchen that opened onto a backyard garden, and enough bedrooms for a family. "I do not understand," Olivia said, though her heart was starting to race with hope. Owen took her hands, the plans falling forgotten to the ground. "Your house will always be yours, always be in your family, but I want to build something new with you too. A place that is ours from the beginning, where we can make our own memories. A place where someday, if we are lucky, our kids can learn to plant bulbs and make pie crust and all the things that matter." "Owen," Olivia breathed, tears already starting to fall. He dropped to one knee right there in the overgrown lot, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Olivia Nash, you have taught me what it means to value the past while building toward the future. You have shown me that some things are worth fighting for, worth preserving, worth every ounce of effort it takes to keep them alive. You are one of those things. You are the most important thing. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life preserving what we have built together and creating new memories to pass down to the next generation?" "Yes," Olivia said through her tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The ring was perfect, a vintage Art Deco piece that Owen had found in an estate sale and had restored. As he slipped it onto her finger, Olivia pulled him to his feet and kissed him with all the love and joy and gratitude she felt. This man, who had walked into her life when she least expected it, had given her not just security for her family home, but a future she had stopped believing was possible. They were married the following spring in Olivia's backyard, under the apple trees that had been planted by her grandmother. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family, but it was perfect. Emma was the flower girl, scattering petals from Olivia's garden along the makeshift aisle. Marcus walked Olivia down from the porch, tears streaming down his face as he placed her hand in Owen's. The vows they wrote were simple but profound. Owen promised to always value what mattered to Olivia, to preserve the past while building the future, to be the kind of man her family would be proud to call their own. Olivia promised to be his partner in all things, to help him find purpose in his work and joy in his life, to build a home filled with the kind of love and warmth he had missed as a child. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the entire gathering erupted in cheers. Owen kissed Olivia with a passion that made Emma giggle and Marcus whistle, and Olivia kissed him back with everything she had. The reception was held in the house and spilled out into the yard, with tables set up under strings of lights and food prepared from Olivia's family recipes. Owen had insisted on making the wedding cake himself, using his grandmother's recipe, and while it was slightly lopsided, it was the most delicious thing anyone had ever tasted. As the sun set and the party continued, Owen pulled Olivia aside to the front porch where they had first really talked, where he had first told her not to sell the house. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Happier than I have ever been," Olivia said honestly. "You did this, Owen. You made this possible." "We did this," he corrected, just as she had corrected him so many months ago. Together, they stood there as night fell, watching their friends and family celebrate inside the house that had brought them together. In the distance, Olivia could see the framework of the new house rising on the lot Owen had purchased, the beginning of their next chapter. "You ever regret it?" Olivia asked softly. "Walking away from the kind of development that made you rich, choosing preservation over profit?" "Never," Owen said firmly. "I have more now than I ever had before. I have purpose, passion, a partner who challenges me to be better. I have a family, something I never really had growing up. I have a home, or rather, I have two homes, one that honors the past and one that looks toward the future. I have everything that matters." "So do I," Olivia said, turning in his arms to kiss him again. "So do I." The first years of their marriage were full and rich, exactly the kind of life they had both dreamed of building. They lived primarily in Olivia's house, which they continued to lovingly restore and maintain, but they finished building the new house and used it for entertaining and as a place to escape to when they needed something different. Olivia continued teaching, finding joy in shaping young minds, while Owen's preservation company grew and thrived, taking on larger and more ambitious projects. They worked together on numerous restoration projects, becoming a respected team in the preservation community. Olivia's ability to see the emotional and historical value of properties, combined with Owen's business acumen and resources, made them uniquely effective. They saved dozens of buildings from demolition, transforming them into affordable housing, community centers, and mixed-use developments that honored their history while serving modern needs. 2 years after their wedding, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. The news came as both a joy and a surprise, as they had been talking about starting a family, but had not expected it to happen so quickly. Owen was over the moon, immediately throwing himself into preparing for fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He read every parenting book he could find, started baby-proofing both houses, and talked endlessly about all the things he wanted to teach their child. Their daughter was born in January, a tiny perfect thing with Owen's gray-blue eyes and Olivia's determined chin. They named her Grace, after Owen's grandmother, giving her a connection to the past even as she represented their future. Owen cried when he held her for the first time, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility and love he felt. "I am going to do better for her than my parents did for me," he said fiercely as Olivia recovered in the hospital bed. "She is going to know she is loved. She's going to have memories and traditions and a home filled with warmth." "She is going to have all of that and more," Olivia assured him. "She is going to have both of us." Grace grew up between two houses, learning early that home was not just one place, but rather anywhere her family was together. She took her first steps in the old house's living room, where generations of Nash children had learned to walk before her. She planted her first garden in the backyard of the new house, with Olivia and Owen guiding her small hands, just as Olivia's mother and grandmother had guided hers. When Grace was 2, Olivia and Owen were approached by a local university about teaching a course on historic preservation and community development. They agreed, and soon found themselves spending one evening a week sharing their knowledge and passion with students who would carry on the work they had started. It was fulfilling in ways neither of them had anticipated, knowing that they were not just preserving buildings, but training the next generation of preservationists. Around Grace's 3rd birthday, Marcus and Rachel moved back to the area after years living across the country. Emma, now a teenager, was thrilled to be close to her aunt and uncle again, and she became a constant presence in their lives, babysitting Grace and helping with restoration projects during her summer vacations. The family that had once been scattered was now reunited, and Olivia's house once again rang with the sound of multiple generations sharing meals and stories. On a warm evening in late summer, when Grace was 4 years old, the extended family gathered for dinner at the old house. Emma had helped Grace make cookies earlier in the day, and the little girl was proud to serve them to everyone after the meal. As they sat around the table, laughing and talking over each other the way families do, Owen caught Olivia's eye and smiled. Later, after everyone had gone home and Grace was asleep upstairs in the room that had once been Olivia's childhood bedroom, they sat together on the front porch, watching fireflies dance in the dusk. "You remember the first time I sat on this porch?" Owen asked, pulling Olivia close. "Of course," she said. "I thought you were just another developer trying to take my house away from me. And I thought you were the most stubborn, passionate, beautiful woman I had ever met," Owen said. "I still think that, by the way." "I remember you telling me not to sell the house," Olivia continued. "I could not understand why a developer would want me to keep the thing he was trying to buy. It did not make any sense." "It made perfect sense," Owen said. "I just had not explained it yet. I had to wait until dinner to tell you why." "And why was that?" Olivia asked, even though she knew the answer, had known it for years. Owen turned to face her, his hand cupping her cheek in the gesture that had become so familiar and beloved. "Because I saw something in you and this house that I had been missing my whole life. Because I recognized that some things are too valuable to be measured in money. Because I was falling in love with you before I even knew your name, and I needed a reason to see you again." "You could have just asked me to dinner," Olivia teased. "I could have," Owen agreed. "But then I would not have been able to help save your house. And this house, this incredible repository of memories and love, it is part of what I fell in love with. You and this house, they are inseparable. Saving one meant saving both." "We saved each other," Olivia said softly. "You saved my house, and I helped save you from becoming someone you did not want to be. We gave each other the chance to build something real and lasting." "Best decision I ever made," Owen said, kissing her temple. "Telling you not to sell the house. It led to everything else. It led to us. Speaking of which," Olivia said, a mischievous smile playing at her lips, "Grace has been asking about siblings. She wants to know when she is going to have a baby brother or sister." Owen pulled back to look at her, hope and question in his eyes. "Is that something you want? Another child?" "I think so," Olivia said. "If you do, I love our life and I love our family, and I think there is room for one more." "There is always room for one more," Owen said, his smile radiant. "In this house, in our hearts, in our lives. Let us do it. Let us make our family even bigger." They sat on that porch long into the night, making plans and dreaming dreams, secure in the foundation they had built together. Around them, the old house stood solid and strong, its walls holding a century of memories and preparing to welcome new generations. Inside, Grace slept peacefully, wrapped in the warmth and security of a home built on love and preservation, and the courage to choose what mattered over what was easy. 18 months later, they welcomed twin boys, Henry and James, named after Owen's and Olivia's grandfathers respectively. The old house rang with noise and chaos, and more love than Olivia had ever imagined possible. Grace proved to be a devoted big sister, helping with diaper changes and bottle feedings, and entertaining the babies with songs and stories. Owen scaled back his work to be more present for his growing family, but he never stopped his preservation efforts. If anything, becoming a father made him even more passionate about saving historic properties and maintaining connections to the past. He wanted his children to grow up in a world that valued history and memory, that understood the importance of roots even as it reached toward the future. Olivia eventually reduced her teaching to part-time, wanting to be home more with the children, but not quite ready to give up the classroom entirely. Her students benefited from having a teacher who understood the importance of building connections and creating memories, who knew that education was about so much more than academics. Together, they navigated the beautiful chaos of raising 3 children in 2 houses, balancing careers and family, and the endless restoration projects that kept their hands busy and their hearts full. There were hard days, of course, moments of exhaustion and frustration and doubt. But there were far more days of joy, of watching their children grow and learn and develop their own passions, of stealing quiet moments together amid the chaos, of building a life that honored the past while embracing the future. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen surprised Olivia with a photo album he had been secretly compiling. It documented their entire journey together, from that first evening on the porch to their wedding to the births of their children. But it also included photos of the houses and buildings they had saved over the years, the families they had helped, the communities they had strengthened through their preservation work. "This is our legacy," Owen said as they looked through it together, the children finally asleep after a long day of anniversary celebrations. "Not just our children, though they are the most important part. But this work we have done, these places we have saved, the memories we have preserved for other families. This matters. We matter." "We do," Olivia agreed, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the evidence of the life they had built. "We really do." "Thank you," Owen said, taking her hands, "for seeing past the developer and the money to the man I could become, for teaching me what really matters, for being my partner in every sense of the word, for giving me a family and a home and a purpose, for everything." "Thank you for not letting me sell the house," Olivia said with a watery laugh, "for seeing the value in what I was trying to preserve, for understanding that some things are worth fighting for choosing me, choosing us, choosing this life." They kissed there in the living room of the old house, surrounded by the evidence of generations of love and the promise of generations yet to come. Outside, the neighborhood slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that at least this one house, this one family, understood the importance of preservation and memory and building something lasting. Years continued to pass, marked by milestones and memories. Grace grew into a thoughtful teenager with a passion for history and architecture, clearly following in her parents' footsteps. Henry and James were rough and tumble boys who filled the house with noise and energy and endless questions about everything. Emma graduated from college and came to work for Prescott Preservation, bringing fresh ideas and youthful enthusiasm to the company her uncle had built. Owen's mother, who had been distant and disapproving when he first changed the direction of his business, gradually came to respect and even admire what he had accomplished. She visited more frequently, developing a relationship with her grandchildren that she had never managed with her own son. In her 80s, she confessed to Owen that she wished she had made different choices when he was growing up, that she wished she had prioritized family and memories over social standing and business success. "You did better than we did," she told him one Christmas, watching the chaos of family gathering with something like wistfulness. "You built something real. You made different choices. I am proud of you." It was a moment of healing Owen had not realized he needed, and it strengthened his resolve to continue being present and engaged with his own children, to make sure they always knew they were loved and valued for who they were, rather than what they could achieve. When Grace was 18 and preparing to leave for college, the family gathered once more at the old house for a celebration. She was planning to study architectural preservation, with dreams of joining the family business eventually. As they sat around the dinner table, now expanded with extra leaves to accommodate the growing family, Grace raised her glass. "I want to make a toast," she said, her voice strong and clear. "To this house, which has sheltered and loved our family for almost 100 years. To my mom, who fought to keep it when everyone else said to let it go. To my dad, who understood the value of preservation before he even understood his own heart. And to all of us, who have been lucky enough to grow up knowing that home is not just a place but a legacy, a promise, a connection to everyone who came before and everyone who will come after. May we always honor what we have been given and build something worthy of passing on." "Hear, hear," everyone chorused, raising their glasses. Later that night, after the celebration had wound down and the house was quiet once more, Owen and Olivia walked through the rooms, remembering. They stood in the kitchen where they had shared their first real conversation, where Owen had first begun to reveal himself. They sat on the sofa where they had eaten pie and told each other their stories. They climbed the stairs to the bedroom where they had loved and laughed and built a life together. "We did it," Olivia said softly. "We preserved the past and built the future. We raised children who understand the value of both. We created something lasting." "We did," Owen agreed. "And we did it together, just like we promised." He pulled her close, and they stood at the window looking out over the yard where Grace and Emma had once planted bulbs, where Henry and James now played with the same boundless energy Grace had possessed as a child. In the distance, they could see the lights of the new house, empty now but waiting for the next generation to fill it with their own memories. "You ever wonder what would have happened if I had not knocked on your door that day?" Owen asked. "If I had not seen you in the garden? If I had just continued being the person I was?" "Sometimes," Olivia admitted. "But then I remember that some things are meant to be. You were ready to change, you just needed a reason. I needed someone to help me see that holding on to the past did not mean I could not build a future. We needed each other. The universe or fate or whatever you want to call it made sure we found each other." "I am grateful for that," Owen said. "Every single day I am grateful." They made love that night with the tenderness and passion that came from a decade of marriage and partnership, of knowing each other's bodies and hearts as well as their own. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the bed that had been Olivia's grandmother's, they talked about the future. About Grace going to college and finding her own path, about Henry and James growing into young men, about the preservation projects they still wanted to complete, about growing old together in this house that had brought them together and kept them grounded. "Promise me something," Olivia said as sleep began to claim her. "Anything. Promise me that when we are old and gray, we will still sit on that porch and remember the night you first told me not to sell the house. Promise me we will tell our grandchildren the story of how you walked into my life and changed everything. Promise me this house will always be filled with love and memories and family." "I promise," Owen said, kissing her forehead. "All of that and more. This house, our family, the life we have built together, it is my greatest accomplishment. Nothing I build or preserve or save will ever matter more than this, than us, than what we have created together." As they drifted off to sleep, the old house settled around them with the familiar creaks and sighs of a structure that had weathered decades of life and love. In the morning, there would be breakfast to make and children to wrangle and the daily routines of life to navigate. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms in the house that had sheltered generations, Owen and Olivia were simply grateful for the journey that had brought them together and the future that stretched before them, full of promise and possibility. The years rolled on, bringing changes and continuity in equal measure. Grace graduated from college, and spent 2 years working for a prestigious preservation firm in New York before returning home to join Prescott Preservation. She brought new ideas and techniques, pushing the company to embrace technology while still honoring traditional methods. She also brought a boyfriend, a young architect named Thomas who fit seamlessly into the family and shared their passion for historic buildings. Henry and James followed different paths, with Henry pursuing environmental science and James discovering a love for teaching. But both remained connected to the family business in their own ways, understanding that preservation was about more than just buildings. It was about preserving communities, environments, stories, the fabric of life that connected past, present, and future. On Owen and Olivia's 20th wedding anniversary, the family gathered once more at the old house for a celebration that spanned 3 generations. Owen's mother was there, frail but still sharp, delighting in her great-grandchildren and marveling at how her son had built something so much more valuable than money. Marcus and Rachel had become pillars of the community, running a successful business while maintaining the family connections that mattered most. Emma had married and started her own family, bringing her children to play in the same yard where she had once helped her aunt plant bulbs. As the party swirled around them, Owen pulled Olivia aside to the front porch, their refuge and sanctuary, the place where so many important conversations had happened over the years. 20 years, he said, shaking his head in wonder. How is it possible that 20 years have passed? 20 years since we got married, Olivia corrected with a smile. Almost 21 years since you first knocked on my door and told me not to sell the house. The best decision I ever made, Owen said, pulling her into his arms. Do you know why? Tell me, Olivia said, even though she knew, even though he had told her countless times over the years. She never tired of hearing it. Because I knew even then that you were something extraordinary, that this house was something extraordinary. That if I could somehow become part of your life, part of your world, I might finally understand what it meant to have something real, to build something lasting, to matter. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch as reverent now as it had been on their wedding day. You taught me that, Olivia. You taught me that money and success, and all the things I thought mattered were nothing compared to love and family and preserving what is truly important. You made me a better man. You made me a whole person. You gave me everything. We gave each other everything, Olivia said, her eyes shining with tears. I was so focused on the past, on preserving what I had lost, that I almost missed the future standing right in front of me. You showed me that I could honor my family's legacy while building something new. That holding on to the past did not mean I could not embrace the present. You gave me permission to be happy again, to love again, to hope again. I love you, Owen said simply. I have loved you since the moment I saw you in that garden, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond. I love you too, Olivia whispered. Always and forever. They kissed there on the porch as the celebration continued inside, surrounded by the family they had built and the love they had nurtured. The old house stood strong around them, its foundation solid, its walls weathered but sturdy, its heart filled with generations of memories and the promise of generations yet to come. And in that moment, with the man she loved in her arms and the life they had built surrounding them, Olivia understood with perfect clarity that every choice she had made had led her exactly where she needed to be. That fighting to keep this house had been about more than preserving the past. It had been about creating space for the future to unfold. It had been about refusing to let go of what mattered, even when it would have been easier to surrender. It had been about having faith that sometimes, if you hold on tight enough to what you love, the universe sends you someone to help carry the weight. Owen had been that someone. He had walked into her life when she most needed him, and he had given her not just financial support but partnership, love, a family, a future. He had seen the value in what she was trying to preserve, and he had helped her understand that preservation and progress were not opposites but partners, two sides of the same precious coin. As the sun set over the neighborhood they had helped preserve and strengthen, Owen and Olivia returned to the party, their hands clasped, their hearts full, their love as strong and enduring as the house that had brought them together. They had built something extraordinary, not just in the buildings they had saved or the family they had raised, but in the life they had created together, one conversation, one dinner, one shared dream at a time. And they knew, with the certainty that comes from 2 decades of partnership and love, that whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever changes time would bring, they would face them together. Because that was what they did. That was what they had always done. Together, they had preserved the past, built the future, and created a legacy of love that would endure long after they were gone, living on in the house that had sheltered them, the children they had raised, and the memories they had made in every room, every corner, every quiet moment stolen on the front porch where it had all begun with a simple request: do not sell the house.